I like to use the metaphor of a magnet. The hiring funnel should be a magnet for the exact right fit A player that you're looking for. It attracts, but it also repels. The best hiring funnel should automatically pick out wrong fit candidates.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of MarketingInk. I have got a very special guest with me today, Ms. Jhana Li. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Allie. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. I had the pleasure of meeting this incredible woman on the Modern Profits cruise not that long ago. Definitely a really awesome experience. Was able to meet some incredible people. And in particular, you were one that I was really excited about. Number one, because you're super cool. And number two, because I am going to bring on my new operator through your company, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I think this is an amazing topic for a lot of business owners in a lot of different industries, a lot of different levels. And this is something that ultimately, I'd thought about for a while and finally pulled the trigger, thankfully, and I could not be more excited. But before we kind of dive into what an operator is, what an operator does, who needs them, all of the things, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of how you got to this point in your life and your business?
Yeah. So I always say that before I found operations, I was literally directionless. I was living in a converted van and traveling through North and South America. And my now ex-boyfriend at the time was building a marketing agency. And so I was just, helping problem solve the way that you do for partners, just trying to help him figure it out, trying to help him grow this thing. And I stepped into that company for what was supposed to be like sub in for someone for 30 days and ultimately ended up as that company's COO. So since then, I have been, COO for 2 different successful startups. And then I started my own company about 3.5 years ago because of exactly what you just said, Allie. Operations is key for every business at every stage of growth. And yet nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what to look for in a great second in command. Nobody knows when the right time to bring that person is or how to set them up for success. And the knowledge gap there just costs entrepreneurs so much time and energy and money. And it's frustrating and heartbreaking for me to watch people struggle with all these problems that operations could solve. And so that's why I do what I do, is to just get operations out there and help people understand how it can be the accelerant to their growth and to their freedom.
I love it. So let's just kind of define what operations really consist of in a business.
Yeah. So this is how I describe it. Imagine your business is a bucket and sales and marketing is the pipe that is bringing water into the bucket. The job is grow the bucket, get more water in there. Every single bucket has gaps and holes, and the bigger the bucket grows and the more water gets poured in, the bigger the holes, the bigger the cracks. And water, you're working so hard. Marketing and sales is working so hard to bring water into the bucket. And then the water is just leaking out the side. The job of operations fundamentally is to find the cracks and find the gaps in the holes and to plug them so that the water can stay in the bucket.
I think that's an amazing definition. Probably the best definition that I've heard to date of what operations really is. And it does make so much sense. Ultimately, I end up working with a lot of people who, their pipe's not working,
Totally.
So they can't even get things into the bucket to begin with. But it does become a major problem, even when you've grown something that is successful, or you do spend the time, you spend the money, you spend the energy to get marketing working, to get sales working. And then you find that you've got a whole nother set of problems, and maybe problems that you have never experienced before, you don't personally feel equipped to handle, or you simply don't have the time to do it on top of what you're doing with everything else. And so when somebody finally says, hey, I have not paid any attention to the operations, or maybe they've done their best and they have paid some attention, but they know that it's just kind of more than they can handle, what is a good way to start? Is it an analysis of the current operations? What do you normally recommend for someone who says, I'm not sure if I need this, I'm not sure what I need? Can you help me?
Yeah. So what's so hard about operations is that the average visionary founder is not focused on the cracks in the bucket at all. They might be aware that they're there, but more likely than not, they're just focused on pouring more and more water in. And then they're sitting around at the end of the day, sitting in a puddle and being like, where did all of my water go? Right? We're not even aware that these cracks and holes exist. So to answer your question, yes, an audit is the best place to start because it's not actually the natural lens of the visionary founder to see all of those cracks and to see all the holes and to see how to plug them and to see why it's costing them time and money and, energy. But an operator's lens, that's what they do better than anything else. They dream of cracks and leaks. It's all they can see. And so when we work with a client, like when we worked with you, we started with the audit because I bring in a team of operators to tell the client, here's where all of these cracks are. Here's all the issues. Here's why you're not getting to your goals as fast as you thought you were. And here's what you need to do about it. Because if the visionary is trying to do that to their own business, like I always say, none of us can read the label from inside the jar, right?
Yeah.
And you're inside the jar. You just can't see what somebody coming in from the outside would be able to tell you.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it was almost like a liberating experience to go through that because ultimately it is something that I would say, am I passionate about operations? Not really. Am I passionate about automation? Absolutely. But it's not the thing that really gets me jazzed up. Do I know it's critical? 100%. But outside of myself, there has not been a person who could identify all of the things that are going on. And at the end of the day, every business, whether it's a big business or a small business, it's comprised of different people and different parts and different processes. And most people just kind of stay in their lane of their role of here's the things that I'm doing. So maybe I see these processes, but I don't see those other processes. And so having somebody that can look in from the outside and look at all of them in one fell swoop and identify from even just things that they've seen through working with other businesses, things that you are not even aware that you have issues with ultimately, or maybe things that aren't big issues, but could be big issues in the future if you don't plug those holes and fill those gaps. So definitely, I thought that was a really just a great experience to know that you've got somebody who's really clear and upfront with you. I love people that are direct and that give it to you straight, and having someone who can do that, I think, is really incredible. Now, having done all of these different audits and worked with these different businesses on the operations side, what do you find are kind of the biggest issues that you typically see in most companies?
Okay, so this is so fun because we literally just ran the data. So I have a database answer for you, which I love. The biggest bottlenecks, and I want to highlight something you just said. It's like the biggest cracks, the biggest gaps in our bucket fall into the category of the I don't know what I don't know, right? Because none of us as visionary CEOs are so excited about operations that we want to learn everything about it and know where all of the gaps are in our company. We actually don't know where the problem is. And we don't know that we don't know where the problem is. And so that's the hidden cost. That's what's really leaking water out of the bucket. And it generally falls into 3 categories. The first category is strategy. So founders either lack clear strategic vision for where they want to take the company. Generally, this is because they're so bogged down in the day-to-day weeds that they actually don't have time to pick themselves out of the weeds, get back to the 30,000-foot view and say, where the hell am I going and how am I going to get there? So if we as founders are consistently carving out time to set and then stick to a clear strategic vision, because that's the other thing we see is like, we might have a strategy, but then we change our mind after every mastermind that we go to. So it's as good as useless. That absolutely needs to be clear. I always say, like, you can't run a race if you don't know where the finish line is. And so many entrepreneurs out there are running so hard, but we've lost sight of the finish line. And so we just end up running in random directions. So that's the first one, strategy and strategic vision. The second one is leadership style. I don't know about you, Ali, but I'm a huge believer that our businesses are reflections of ourselves, which means that our business is never going to grow faster than we do. As you build and scale a team, you as a leader need to grow and evolve. And it falls squarely into the category of, I don't know what I don't know. Namely, I don't know what kind of leader I need to become in order to build and take my team to the next version of what I know we're capable of. Yeah. And so to have somebody who has worked with leaders who are 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of you and can tell you, hey, here's the next step. Here's where you need to evolve. Here's what you need to become to take your company forward is really, really valuable because none of us know when we haven't been there ourselves. Yeah. And then the third and final category. So we have strategy, we have leadership style, and then we have team structure. Your team has to evolve as your company does. I have most of our clients, when we start working with them, they have a team of Swiss Army knives. and we like a bunch of people wearing a bunch of hats and doing everything just okay, right? Yeah. And we need to help them evolve from a team of Swiss Army knives into a team of scalpels, experts doing one thing exceptionally well, coordinating with and orchestrating with an entire ecosystem of other scalpels, but everyone staying in their lane, being a master of their own role, having entire and complete ownership for their role. And once we have a team of scalpels, that's what allows the CEO to elevate out of the day-to-day. Because if you have a team of Swiss Army knives, you have to be in there with them, keeping an eye on everything, doing everything, and making sure balls don't drop. Once you have a team of scalpels, then everyone can do their work without you, and you can actually elevate out of the weeds and focus on big picture vision and taking your company to the next level.
Yeah, no, I resonate with all of those so much. I think ultimately for me, the strategic vision has been the thing that I'm good at. I usually stick to the direction that I'm going. I know exactly what I want to do, but the leadership and who I have to become as a leader, it's not something that you really think about as you're getting there, you know?
Totally.
I've always been good at leading myself. And I've really come to realize over the last couple of years, like I do not love managing the day-to-day of people. And in part, I think it's so much about Swiss Army knives, you know, who would enjoy having to be in there and be responsible for all of these things. And so, you know, one of the takeaways from the audit conversation that we had is, you know, moving forward in my business, do not hire anybody that's not a batteries included A player. Like there is no, I've been grateful to be able to find people over the years that I have been able to work closely with and help them hone their craft. And I think there's totally a place for it, but you definitely get to the point where you have got to have those experts if you're going to be freed up whatsoever. And so I think all of that makes perfect sense. My question for you would be, and definitely one I know you've heard before, at what point does somebody need to either A, say, I may not be an operator, but I've got to learn operations. You know, we all go through stages where we've got to do the things that need to be done in our business to get to where we need to go. So is there a point where you as the entrepreneur, maybe you're not big yet, you have to just sit back and say, I may not love it, but I know it's important and I've got to do it? Or is it better to simply find someone who can do that effectively in your company and then kind of weighing the costs of what decision is better for me at whatever stage that I'm in business currently?
Such a good question. So yeah, when we're small, we have to wear all that, right? Because we have no budget and we have no option. That being said, I think people wait way too long to bring in operations. It's generally like the last hire to be made. And that doesn't make any sense to me because operations tends to be what the founders are worst at, right? So if you're taking all this time and energy, pouring it into something that you don't like, where the outcome is not that good, you're not getting a great ROI on it. Versus hold on to something like sales, where you're excellent at it and it lights you up and every hour invested makes you money back. Hold on to that and delegate out the thing that you hate. Like that's where you're going to get the most bang for buck on your time and your energy. So to give you like revenue guidelines on this in general, because we have to, the founders have to play operator up to about the 30 to 50K per month mark. If we're talking like agencies or SaaS.
Wow, I really was slow on this one.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But then here's what's important, right? Is that when we get to the 50K per month mark, generally we see business owners and we recommend that they bring in a dedicated operator between 50 to 100K per month. But it doesn't have to be a COO. And that's the big mistake that we make is like, I think operations, I think COO. So do I have to wait until I can afford a 200K per year COO before I bring operations into my business? Hell no. You need to start with the entry level operator that is going to do the day-to-day operations that your company needs to get you to the next level and get you to the next level operator when you can afford them. So you're talking about a 60K a year ops manager, even less if you hire them internationally. And that is something that you can afford at around the 7-figure run rate. And then as the company grows, like we're placing a really advanced operator for you, Allie, because you like hung on for a really long time. And now your company is big and complex and you need a really experienced operator to manage that much complexity. But if you brought a person in, again, hypothetical, we don't know what we don't know, an operator that could grow with you as your business does, you could have actually saved on a lot of cost. And really, it's like the water that wouldn't have leaked out of the bucket if we had somebody full-time just focused on that for the last few years.
I think that makes so much sense. And ultimately, my mom always jokes with me because whenever I'm focused on things, I'm like, is that a revenue producing activity? That's the area that I'm always focused on. If it's not a revenue producing activity, it's not worth my time right now. And obviously things come up that are outside of that you have to focus on. But I think, like you said, whatever that thing is that you're really great at, that is going to have a benefit in the business, the more your time is spent on that thing, the better the business is going to do. I think for me, a lot of the time, I don't even think about there being a position of someone who is an operator. Like we talk about hiring, we talk about, all these different roles within a business. And I don't know if I just haven't been in the room, but I've been in a lot of rooms and I've talked to a lot of people, and it's not really a position that gets discussed very often. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's such a good observation. And I think it's because as founders, we're all focused on revenue driving activities. And operations is not a revenue driving activity. It's a profit driving activity, right? Operations connects to the money pipeline by keeping the water in the bucket. It's not there to pour more water in. That's marketing. That's sales. That's what gets all the attention. And that's where visionaries and founders spend all of their time. So we actually don't see all the water leaking out. And we don't even think of hiring in a role whose full-time dedicated focus is to fix a problem that we don't even see. So of course we're not going to hire for it because we don't even see the problem. But that doesn't mean that the problem's not there, right? Yeah. At its best, the visionary is focused on driving top-line revenue. The operator is focused on minimizing expenses. And the gap between those two is what becomes your profit margin, right? So operations drives profit from the bottom line. But because it's not focused on top line, it doesn't get a lot of attention. But that's why we see all these scaled up companies absolutely draining their profit because no one's keeping an eye on the leakage. When in fact, you've already paid all of this money to acquire those clients, to bring all this cash into the bucket. And now it's just leaking out. How ROI positive would it be to spend $50K a month on somebody who can keep $50K worth of water in the bucket month over month?
Yeah. No, it really is. Hindsight is 2020. And I think, especially within industries where maybe your margins are pretty good, maybe things are going well, but you don't see how well they could be going. And I guess the question is, if you're saying that most founders, they don't really know this problem exists. So how do you know when it's time to fix the problem? What are those signs and symptoms that somebody should be aware of to know if this is an area that needs to be addressed within their business?
Yeah, such a good question. So what's important to understand is that the water in this metaphor is not just money. The big one that founders are aware of is time. How is time leaking out of your bucket? And specifically, how is your time as a founder going to waste? This is what we are aware of. We're aware that we're working 80-hour weeks and we don't want to be. We're aware that we keep having to step in to fix day-to-day fires that feel really low value, totally drain the life out of us, and don't actually move the needle on the business. We're aware that we have to do low-value admin tasks and emails and client FAQs and all the stuff that just ends up piling up and taking it over our day-to-day, but not actually moving the needle on the business. If you see that, that is an operational problem. It is actually your operator's job to come in and to take all of that stuff off of your plate. Because again, it's leakage. It's a valuable resource, your time, that is leaking out of the business that could have been spent pouring more water into the bucket. It is a wasted opportunity. And so it's the job of operations to fix that. But it's a problem that we as founders are most aware of. It's is my time being used as effectively as possible? Or would I love to be able to take a vacation with my family? Would I love to be able to step away without everything falling apart for a week? Would I love to be able to work a 20, 30-hour work week and still see the same amount of growth in my company? If any of these things are interesting to you, then the fix is not work harder, more money, more sales and marketing, more water in the bucket. That's only going to make the cracks. It's only going to waste more of your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that the time element, obviously it is a financial thing, because if you're not staying focused on the things that you're really, really good at, it's a missed opportunity financially. But time is the only thing you can't get back. I mean, that is the thing that was the most valuable to me, and is the most valuable to me. And I think the reason I'm so excited is just to have not only time back in terms of, I wasn't working 80 hours a week, but I was certainly doing things that didn't light me up on a regular basis. And so I've thought so much over the last couple of months about, what is it that I love? Like, what are the only things that I truly want to do? And it's given me a lot of clarity on, these are literally the things I get excited about. These are the only things within my business that I want to do. And if it's not related to that, somebody else needs to be doing it. And so I do think it gives you just not only the time, but to me personally, the clarity thus far in terms of really asking yourself, like, are all the things you're doing, maybe even things you thought you liked, maybe they were things you used to like, but you don't like them anymore. And now this is a great way to have somebody to do that. So that leads to the next question. It's not always easy to find good people. In fact, it's extremely difficult a lot of the time to find good people, not just for a role as significant as this, for, even minute roles can seem challenging to find good help. And so what are the most important things that somebody should be looking at when it comes to hiring this individual, whether they are that operations manager that's more of the entry-level position all the way up to the COO? How are they going to find a person that truly will know how to step into their business and do the job? Because I do think, some businesses are more complex than others, but there's a lot of moving parts in a lot of different businesses. And so the type of person who could just step into that and do well, that's not going to be everybody. So I know that you guys work to train people, you work to find people. What common denominators have you found within the people that really thrive in the operations position?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll answer the question around hiring A players, and then we can drill into the ops role specifically. I always laugh when people say I can't find good talent, because the talent is out there, right? It's that we can't find it. Yeah. So the solution to hiring A players is, I always say, it's not about fishing in the right pond. It's about using the right fishing rod. It's not like there's a magical oasis on the internet where all the A players are hanging out, and if you could just find it, you would have unlimited supply. It's about using the right fishing rod. In this case, that's a hiring process. I know this is no surprise coming from operations, right? But a process. We have an 8-step hiring funnel that we build for every client to find their operator, but we also use internally to hire for any role that I want to bring in, that guarantees I get an A player into every role for any budget all the time. It's a process, and the process is what creates a repeatable outcome. And so if you're struggling to find A players, it's probably because it's like kind of the spaghetti at the wall approach, right? And I'm just hoping that I pick up an A player every time I post a job description on Facebook, versus do you have a proven process that will systematically, you can put it in LinkedIn, on Indeed, on Facebook, into your organic network. You can fish in any pond you want to, and it will pull out the right A player for any role that you're looking to hire. If you don't have that consistency, the answer is create a process that will guarantee it. On the operations side, then, we've obviously dialed that process in for operators specifically. And the things that we're looking for, Ali, is a couple of things. The reason that we do the audit first is because we're not just looking for any cookie cutter operator who's done a similar thing at a similar business, so they should be able to do it for yours. This is a much more nuanced rule than that, right? We're talking the yin to your yang. We're talking two totally weird looking puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly. Yeah. And so we need to figure out what is weird about your puzzle piece. What's weird about you, Ali? How you communicate, how you manage, or the fact that you don't like to manage people. And this person shouldn't expect piles of positive reinforcement heaped on them all day, every day. Cool. Somebody who needs that is not going to work well with you, right? And that's okay. We're looking for the yin to your yang. What is unique about you as a CEO? So we can go out and, yes, find the person with the right resume and experience, but the right psychographics who are going to work well with you. because I get so many clients being like, well, I hired the COO. They looked incredible on paper. They worked at all these incredible places, but they didn't work for me. Therefore, operations doesn't work for me. No, we just didn't find you the right puzzle piece. But that starts with identifying who you are and what is unique about your business so that we can then reverse engineer into the negative space how this operator needs to exactly match and fit in.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was definitely the thing that gave me more confidence in the process. I've never tried to hire for an operator before, but it really is such an important position. Like, you have to vibe with this person. You have to feel good about what they can do, but also how you work together. And I think that that's certainly mistakes that I've made in hiring in the past, is that I either didn't recognize or just didn't find it noteworthy of just my communication or management style, I guess. Like you said, I'm very encouraging to people, but I'm not somebody who's going to like pat you on the back for doing your job every day. I expect that people do the job and do it well. And that's just how I am. And I've definitely had people in the past that really needed that, and my not giving that to them was a negative, when to me, I don't even think about it. I talk about work when we're at work. Like I get straight to the point. But that communication style is definitely something that I've had to be more aware of as like going through this process. And now all the other interviews that I've done for these other positions that I've been hiring for, I've been ultra aware of that. And I've been looking at the DISC profiles and the personality profiles differently, where I am looking now not just for the experience, but also making sure that this person is actually going to be a good fit in terms of how we communicate and work together. So, you mentioned that if you're using the right tools, you're using the right rod, the process that you're using working well, it can work well on any platform. What do you feel is the critical component of, we'll talk about what's front facing to people who would be seeing this job description or this role? Is it about just trying to be totally authentic in terms of this is what we do and this is how we do things and this is who we need? Is it about trying to build a really impressive business so A players will want to work with you? What do you think is, it may not just be one thing, but what are the things that an A player is actively looking for? Maybe they're not even job hunting, but what are those things that really catch their attention so that you even have an opportunity to be in front of them in the first place?
Question. So when we talk about hiring process, I like to use the metaphor of a magnet, right? Your hiring funnel should be a magnet for the exact right fit A player that you're looking for, not just for the role, but also your company, your leadership style, everything we just talked about. Cool. So what else does a magnet do? It attracts, but it also repels. The best hiring funnel should automatically pick out wrong fit candidates. So before I tell you the answer, which is, you want a sexy job description that is authentic, accurately paints a picture of the challenges and the opportunities that they're going to step into, doesn't over exaggerate, right? Like a good sales process, which is what it is. It's a sales letter. A good sales letter needs to set appropriate expectations. Going to paint a sexy picture for you about what the upside is, but it's going to be honest and it's not going to lie and pretend like there is no downside, right? So an example of this, Ali, is compensation. I put a compensation range on the front end in job descriptions because if it's not high enough for someone, I don't want to waste their time or my own attracting this incredible 20 years experience COO, get them all the way through to an interview and then realize that we can't pay them even close to what they want. That is wasted time across the board. Kick that person out, right? So it's a magnet in that it attracts the right fit person, but it also repels by being honest about who is going to be the right fit and who is not. This also includes culture, right? Like I put our mission and our core values at the very top of the job description. And I talk about them in a way that is designed to be polarizing. That if somebody doesn't resonate with my culture, they literally just won't apply for the job. But for the right culture fit, they're going to read that and they're going to be like, oh my God, tell me everything about this company. This sounds like the most perfect place for me to work, right? So it magnetizes the right fit. It rejects and repels everybody else.
I love that. Okay. So you've decided, do you need an operator? Number one, you've decided, hopefully what level of operator might be the right fit for where you are. You've realized you got to have this really great process for this person. You know, you need them to be a culture fit, communication fit, all of these things. Now, what do you do to set up your operator for success once they are hired?
Great question. Oh, after this, we haven't already, we're going to send you our onboarding SOP, which is the step-by-step. Yeah, it's like we've got it all processed out for you. So here's what I learned. A strong onboarding process, on average, 3X's average employee retention and increases average employee productivity by 72%. So just by creating a strong onboarding process, like you're onboarding so many people right now, Allie, just by taking the time to onboard them properly, these people will stay with you 3 times longer and be 72% more productive just by getting the first 30 days correct. So it's an extremely important piece of the process. We can plug in the perfect operator, but then if we just do the old, like toss them in the deep end, they'll learn how to swim. Yeah. They're going to churn out 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and then we're going to be like, they weren't the right fit. Yeah. No way. It was us and our lack of ability to set them up for success. So there is a step, again, I think it's a 6-step onboarding process. We will send it to you with the templates and the trainings. You'll have all of it. But the long and short of it is you have to set expectations, right? Like think of a client onboarding process. The whole launch call should be around setting expectations so that they know what you're bringing to the table. You're setting expectations with what they need to bring to the table, and you're setting the partnership up for success. Yep. Same exact thing for your employees. Are you setting expectations around culture and core values, around time off, around compensation and how they can expect to get a raise, around what success in the role looks like, and what measurable targets at the 30, 60, and 90-day mark you expect them to hit to know that they are in the right role. Again, no one can run a race if we don't tell them where the finish line is. Expectations are the finish line. Welcome, new operator. Here's what I expect you to be able to do in the next 90 days. Get to work. And they'll be like, oh my God, thank you for all of that clarity. Now I can go run this race and absolutely crush it for you.
You know, I think there's obviously so many other questions that we could go into. And I know I'm about to get, a firsthand education on a lot of this, but, the challenge, at least in my mind, which I'm thankful for the fact that won't be a challenge here shortly, but something that a lot of people might struggle with as they go into this is, what are the expectations? What is realistic for somebody that has just stepped into my business? Do I just, give them a kind of a little softball toss the first 30 days and ease them into it? Or do I really see, again, with support, if they can do the job with minimal hand holding? And this could apply to any position outside of an operator as well. But on a job that a lot of people may have never hired anyone for before, something that they've probably done themselves for a really long time, how do you even know what is appropriate to give someone? And is that something that you see people struggling with a lot?
Totally see people struggling with it. I had a friend who hired a COO, was paying this guy a 6-figure salary, kept him in the role for 6 months and fired him. And he fired him because he was like, John, I was just disappointed. I was just perpetually disappointed all the time because I didn't know if my expectations were too high or if he was just bad. And I just stuck that out for 6 months until I realized I don't know which one it is, but either way, it's not working, right? Yeah. So there's got to be alignment there from day one, because otherwise you just waste money and time on potentially the wrong person. Yeah. So the way we solve this for our clients, Allie, is like when you go through the audit, you get equipped with a 12-month operational roadmap. So we tell you what's reasonable, broken down quarter over quarter for the next 12 months. It's essentially the scope of work and job description for your operator. So they step into the role. You know what the game plan is. They know what the game plan is. You're aligned from day one, and then they have our support to make sure that they can deliver on it. But without that expert insight, again, I don't know what I don't know. And operations is so high. Like, I don't know what this person should be doing. I don't know what 30 days looks like. I don't know what 90 days looks like. I don't know where the holes and the gaps in my bucket are. So if that's you, either, work with an expert or have the operator, when they first step into the role, do a 14-day audit on your business so they can tell you, hey, here's some of the gaps that I'm seeing. Here's what I think is high priority. Do you agree and align? And then we can set priorities and we can go from there.
Yeah, no, I think that is an absolutely amazing idea, because ultimately, as we've discussed, most people aren't going to know. They don't know, and things haven't been done. It's not like they're walking into a set of processes. There might be processes, but not for their job description and maybe not the processes that need to be there. So if you're just training them on what's already been there, you're probably training them on either a broken or potentially failing system when the whole idea is to get something in there that's different. So I love it. So much amazing information. Thank you so much for your time. I know everybody listening to this, watching this is going to find tremendous value. So if people are interested in learning more about you, what you do, how you can help them, where would you send them?
I would probably send them to my Instagram, which is at the Jhana Li. And that's where I provide the most operational free value education. If you want to learn more, DM me. I can hook you up to get on a call with our team and we can talk you through how we do.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thanks again for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Allie.